These days we're all familiar with air guns and air pistols, a lot of them BB pistols, being made with the brand names of famous firearms manufacturers on them. Of course, they aren't made by those companies. They're just made in Chinese factories or in Taiwan or places like that, and had the name brand put on them under license. Here we have a Smith and Wesson branded pistol that was actually made by Smith and Wesson. Welcome back to Canuck Air. What I have here on the bench is a Smith & Wesson, honest to goodness, Smith & Wesson 79G. This is a .177 caliber CO2 pellet pistol made from 1970 to 1980 under the Smith & Wesson brand name. At the time, in the 60s, Smith & Wesson became owned by a conglomerate called Bangor Punta, and I've seen that name lots of times, and I still have no idea what it really means. But they decided to expand the Smith & Wesson universe to include the attractive prospects of selling air guns. And this particular one, the model 79G, it's in .177 caliber. If it was .22 caliber, it would be the 78G. They were made to look exactly like, and feel like, and handle like the famous Model 41 Smith & Wesson 22 target pistol. And the story goes is that these are really, really similar in their layout and design features, engineering, to the Crosman Mark I, which was introduced just a few years earlier. In both cases, the CO2 cartridges are face down. They're punctured by the mechanism in the bottom. The grip floods with gas and liquid CO2. In both cases, you pull back the breech to drop in a pellet. On the old Crosman, you rotated and pulled it out, but in it went. And in both cases, you cock the gun by pushing forward on the hammer to fire it. The valve sits right in here, releases gas up into the barrel, and off it goes. Exactly the same layout in the earlier model Crosman. Story goes, and it's probably true, that some Crosman people had gone to work for Smith & Wesson to help design this gun. So that certainly makes some sense, given the similarities are way too obvious. If I take out the cartridge seal in both instances, they're not interchangeable, obviously, but my goodness, they are really similar. But if you look at the bottom end of each gun there, yeah, that looks awfully similar design, doesn't it? Anyway, enough of that. The Smith & Wesson is by far a more elegant gun. Then again, it is based on a target pistol that was much more expensive than the Ruger Mark I that the Crosman was designed around and designed to look like. The Model 41, again, as I said, was a high-class target pistol. Arrived in the late 50s and still around to this day, actually. This is based around the longer barrel version of the gun, which I think is a 7.5-inch gun in the actual pistol. This one's a little bit longer because, of course, the pellet load's a little bit further back. But very nice target pistol, and this has that feel and elegance and balance of it. So definitely a fancier product. I think I read somewhere these things sold for about $60 back in the day, which was not chump change for an air pistol, that's for sure. They say that two calibers, .177 and .22. The .177s are supposed to be a little more scarce. At the time, I guess, even in 1970, the .22 caliber pellet was still considered the more desirable in a pellet pistol. If you are shooting tin cans and things like that, the CO2 gas would make a bit more efficient use of that and hit the can with a bit more authority. The .177, cheaper to shoot because the pellets cost less. You're going to use the same gas either way because it's the same mechanism, same parts. So you're blowing the same CO2 down the barrel each time. .177 pellets supposed to be a little more target accurate, and the target market for this gun would probably have been mainly, aside from people who wanted to own something that looked like that fancy target pistol they had read about, and maybe even seen. The other market would be for people who actually did own a Model 41 and wanted something they could practice with, in the basement or in the backyard or something like that. So, very nice gun, and this one is in pretty nice condition. It has a dull or a more matte finish on the upper section here, a little shinier on the grip frame. Not sure why that is. And the story goes is the earliest guns were made in Florida, Tampa, Florida, at a factory set up by Smith and Wesson to start their airgun division. They only ever made 4 guns. 2 of them were these models, and then there was a BB rifle and a pump-up pellet rifle, which were fairly short-lived things. These are the more serious guns, air guns from Smith and Wesson at that time. So, first ones were made in Florida. And for some reason, the production then got moved up to Springfield, Massachusetts. This gun is marked Springfield, Massachusetts. I think it means it was made there. I'm not 100% sure. But production was then moved back again down to Florida. This is an earlier gun in some ways because it does have a trigger adjustment right here. Again, similar to the one that Crosman had on theirs. But later guns deleted this. There's also 2 distinct positions on the hammer. And again, that was deleted in later guns as well. So definitely an earlier production gun because it has that trigger adjustment, but does have the matte finish and suggests it probably was actually made in Springfield. So when these were shipped, they came in a box that had a tin of pellets and 5 CO2 cartridges. Not sure who made those for Smith & Wesson. If they set up their own factory for them or not, I don't know, but the CO2 cartridges, I think, were painted blue with a nice yellow Smith & Wesson crest on them. The pellets, I do have one here somewhere. I'm not sure where I've put it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I have one here because when I was first inspecting this gun, this came out of the barrel. It was loaded in the chamber and never fired. This is definitely a Smith & Wesson style pellet, and which means that this gun may not have been fired in a very, very long time because these have not been available for a very, very long time. But I don't know who made these pellets, whether Smith & Wesson had their own pellet production line or whether they had them made by somebody else. They're similar to a Crosman pellet, but not quite the same, so I don't know where they came from. But the thing with this gun here is it's obviously hasn't been shot in a long time because you can't. And first look here, you'll notice that this seal here is completely destroyed, or at least there's only half of it left. So we need new seals. There's another seal in there to stop gas from leaking down through and out the bottom here, so that's got to be replaced. Might as well replace them all, right? So there's a seal here, and there's seals on the valve, which I haven't got to or seen yet, and might be another one there somewhere too. So thanks to the magic of eBay, there is a fellow out there selling a replacement seal kit for these guns. And it's still available to this day. I spent the extra $3 and got them in urethane, so there you go. And I got 2 kits, just in case I mess up a seal. That way I don't have to go reorder them. But hopefully I don't have to destroy any seals or damage anything, and I will have a spare set for maybe come across another one of these at some point in the future. This gun isn't mine, it's a friend of mine. He acquired it and discovered that, yeah, it was in, not fireable condition. So, yeah, we went to the trouble of getting the seals for it, and we'll get them all installed. Hopefully this won't be too hard. Clean everything up, of course, when we get all the parts out, degrease everything, get the old gunk off them, and relubricate everything. See how everything works, and go from there. And hopefully this will all work again just beautifully. So, yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Anyway, let's go along for the ride. Taking off the grips reveals the screws underneath, and wasn't entirely sure which ones to remove first. Turns out the large flat ones, like this one right here, is actually holds the valve in, which is getting ahead of myself there. This smaller one here is the one that holds the top end of the frame to the lower section. The gun has a power adjustment right on the front of it, similar to what the Craftsman had on their Mark I. What I discovered later is this part is actually fairly well stuck in there, so it's making it very difficult to get the two halves of the gun apart. That part should slide out, and it's not doing that. Tried taking the rest of the valve screws out just in case that was holding anything together. Turns out no, that wasn't. And tapping the muzzle allowed got the barrel out, but that didn't help. It was actually the power adjuster that was this piece right here that was jamming everything together. And you can see that congealed grease is just kind of behaving like a little bit of an adhesive. So the valve should basically lift out of the frame, but again, it hasn't been out in years and it's pretty stuck in there, so I decided to remove all the trigger parts before I figured out what was holding the valve in. But just gently getting it started wriggling, you get a bit of motion on it, and it was slowly work on it till it finally popped free. Also, the O-rings on the transfer port, I think, are fairly sticky, and we're holding everything together. Here it comes, slowly coming out. There we go. That's the transfer port right there. Also kind of glued in with its own O-ring. So with the gun pretty much all broken down now, I've got a good idea what I'm up against. All these parts need a good cleaning. There's a lot of very congealed grease, which I'm sure has been in there since the 1970s. So yeah, we can clean all that out and replace it. And we got a good look at where all our seals have got to go. Obviously this one goes part A, seal A goes right here, according to our very helpful diagram. Seal A. There's another seal right inside here, seal C, which will stop gas from leaking past the plunger assembly. Seal B goes in here, someplace on the end of this, and I'm not sure how to get this out just yet. It's slightly spongy there, and that's the valve there. So when this comes apart, I'll replace that with seal B. So A, B, and C taken care of. D is on the end of the transfer port from the grip frame up into the bottom of the valve assembly. So that little seal right there, some pointer to poke to, but yeah, the seal is right here, and that makes sure we've got a gas tight fit between the valve and the gun body. And seal E is on the bottom of that, so one more underneath there. So this has to come out. Place those two seals. That should be easy enough. A, B, C, D, and E. And then seal F or G is... oh, you haven't taken this part out yet, have I? Seal E or F or G goes on here. This replaces the just the probe seal, which goes into the end of the barrel. There are two that come with the kit, a larger one for the 22 model and the smaller one for the 177. Naturally, I'll be using That's part G, the smaller one. So it means I'm losing A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. Okay, that's all taken care of. Very good. So all I got to do is clean everything and find a way to get all the seals out of their respective places. And there we go. Oh, here this part comes off like that. Yeah, this pin just drops out. So there we go. Cleaning time. This part here is the power adjuster. It threads in and out of the front part of the gun, and this is the little shield right there is the part that actually got jammed inside the gun and wouldn't let it come apart. So with those parts all nice and clean, they slide in and out quite nicely now. So hopefully it'll stay that way. But yeah, when you thread this piece in all the way, you put more tension on the hammer, and when you thread it out, it's softer sprung on the hammer, so you get less gas through, so lower velocity. So I'll have to test that when we do the chronograph testing, see how much of a difference that makes. And before I put all the new O-rings in, I coat all the little seats in the silicone grease. So this is seal A that goes on the valve piercing cap. Down inside it, we put seal C. Actually, it goes in fairly easily. This larger seal is what goes inside the valve, and the original seal was just kind of making it hard to get the valve apart there. Put a bit of pressure on it against the end of my bench and it popped apart. So again, coat everything with a nice little layer of silicone grease, help preserve everything. A couple of drops of silicone oil down inside there to help the valve plunger work smoothly. And the tip is always to put a little drop of CO2 on your end of your cartridge every time you load the gun, and blow a little bit of silicone oil through all the works. This helps everything run smoothly. This is the transfer port that goes from the grip frame up into the valve, and the trick, of course, is to get this the right way round. And I think I put it in the wrong way at first, and I had to redo it. One of these O-rings is ever so slightly larger than the other one, so you got to make sure you get the right one on the right end. Sorry about the camera angle there. I didn't realize I was drifting out of camera range. And this one is seal G, which is the smaller one designed for the 177 version. So the other one in the package is the bigger one. We don't use it. This little tiny little thing is a filter to keep little scraps of metal from getting up into your works. And to slide it right off the bench to get it back in my hands. It drops down that little hole right there, and you put the transfer port right in on top of that. Well, now that I've got all the pieces back in, hopefully in all the right places, I had a couple little missteps here and there. Put the transfer port between the frame and the valve upside down. Discovered that fairly quickly. Put everything back together again and realized I left the transfer port out between the valve and the barrel, so that had to come apart again. It's not too bad to get into in and out, as you saw. So anyway, the next logical thing is to figure out, if we put a cartridge in it, will it hold gas? All new seals, except for that critical seal at the end of the valve, the actual seat. Yeah, let's see if it works. Just push on it. Oh, I heard something. Yeah. We have a gun sealed up, no hissing sounds. So I'm going to leave it for a while and see how that works out. In the meantime, I can set up the chronograph and see how it performs. Okay, so let's see if we can get some shots across the chronograph here. Let's find out how this 79G is performing. So let's get 5 shots. And we'll do 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, these are the G-Co wad cutters, which perform decently well. Consistent pellet, kind of like them. Might as well use them while I've still got some left. Okay. Let's try hard not to shoot the camera. .310, so not terribly powerful there. .317. .330, coming up a little bit. .328. .352. Okay, seems to be warming up a little bit for some reason. Which is unusual because CO2 guns usually go the opposite direction. Start fast and then go slower. Have found I do have to use the second click. The first click doesn't do anything, so doesn't hit the valve hard enough. .340. .356. It is definitely picking up. Still not cracking 400 though, so no big powerhouse. .348. .353. Definitely possible drop in sideways, isn't it? And .357. So that's about the most powerful shot we've had yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is increase the power, hopefully. Power adjuster is all the way out, which is the weakest pressure on the hammer spring. So I'm going to adjust it all the way in and see what kind of difference that makes. This is the same sort of adjustment that the earlier Crosman Mark 1s had, so again, another way in which the guns are pretty similar. Okay, so let's try 10 more. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Okay. Sound louder. 407. Yeah, that steps it up a bit, doesn't it? .412. .416. Interesting how the velocity is climbing. I can only just assume that it's just taking a while for all the parts to properly seat in. The hammer, has to hit that valve, decently hard. That's about all you can really say. I can't imagine the gas is flowing through the valve any better, so it may just be the parts need to seat in again after having been disassembled and cleaned and put back together again with fresh lubricants. .423. Yeah, it definitely is more like it, isn't it? 424. Huh. .425. 1 foot per second at a time. .428. Okay. Let's see if we can hit 430 before we're done. .431. And we did it. .431 again. Very good. Might be where we're maxing out with this pellet. Let's see. .435. Even sounded a bit louder. Okay. So, Smith and Wesson 79G performing pretty well after new seals. Excellent. Now we have to take it out to the range and see how it shoots on a target. First pellets I tried were the favorite inexpensive but pretty decent quality Jayco woodcutters. But I was struggling a little bit with the sights. This group is fairly spread vertically. I think I was just having a hard time getting precise with the sight picture. This group is like 36 millimeters top to bottom here, so that's 1 7/16 of an inch. Things are improving when I tried the JSB shock pellet. This is the heavier weight version, the one with the blue tape on the tin. And yeah, I think I was feeling the gun a little bit better, and I was able to squeeze a 16 millimeter group out of this, which is about 5/8 of an inch. So things are looking up a little bit there. I tried like 3 groups with the H&N Finale match. I was expecting good things from these pellets, and yeah, they weren't too bad. This was the best group of the 3 at 18 millimeters, so around about the 3/4 inch mark. So again, still vertically stringing the shots a little bit. Then I thought I'd get the tried a couple of groups with the JSB RS. This was the best group I got, and I think at this point I just really got a hang of how to line the sights up really well and how the trigger is working. So, but these definitely group really well, tucked into 8 millimeters at that range. So it's only a 5/16 of an inch. So what have we managed to learn about this lovely Smith & Wesson 79G that weighs 1,234 grams with a CO2 cartridge inside it, and it happens to measure 11 1/4 inches long, 11 1/2 inches long maybe, which is 29 centimeters. It's a big gun for sure, and very nicely made for all that. And we've discovered that it shoots pretty darn well. The trigger pull on it, I would say, is not as crisp as I would like it to be, or as light. I do struggle with it. The gun, when I shoot single-handed, the gun trembles a little bit as I'm trying to pull the trigger. It's not quite as good as the trigger on my Crosman Mark I, but I would say the gun handles and balances better than the Crosman Mark I. That Crosman, of course, was based on the Ruger Mark I target, and this, of course, is based on a much more refined design from the Smith & Wesson Model 41. Now, some of you may have been watching this video fairly closely and thinking, wait a minute, I have a Daisy catalog from the 1980s that isn't this gun in that catalog? And it kind of is. In 1980, Smith and Wesson decided to give up on their dream of making air guns for everybody and sold the design for this gun to Daisy and the tooling with it, apparently. And Daisy kept it going as the models 780 and 790. They kept them going until the mid to late 80s. I'm not sure when they eventually discontinued them. There was another model too that was based on the same thing but with a shiny chrome finish. They called it the Model 41. Apparently it wasn't quite as nice as their 780 and 790. And it's to be argued those aren't quite as nice as this when they were made by Smith and Wesson. Especially this early version that has the adjustable trigger. That's something that they did away with later. And then when Daisy were making the guns, they decided to improve the hammer mechanism such that it was a lot less likely to go off accidentally if you dropped it. You could get your old Smith & Wessons retrofitted apparently, but those of them will be marked with a D somewhere on the grip if they've been sent back for the recall that you could have done. But this one is pretty much in original condition. As we found it, it shoots really well, quite accurately indeed. And especially from rest, seems to be fairly happy about whatever pellets are put through it. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting air pistol from the 1970s, back when things were made pretty darn well when you consider. It certainly has been a lot of fun to shoot with, and I'll be regret giving it back to its owner. I do have one more little project for it before it goes home, so that should be kind of fun to give it a little more of a workout, see what it can do. And but anyway, thanks for following along, and hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've been enjoyed actually working with this gun. Proven that they can be with a simple seal kit, not that hard to install. Bring it back to like new condition. Oh, and one more thing, I discovered it gets about close to 50 shots on a single powerlet. So that kind of surprised me. You know, a lot of CO2 guns start to give up the gas around about 30 or 30 plus. So this is considering it's shooting pretty decent power. That's not so bad at all. Anyway, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, and Canuck Air will return with more fun stuff, I promise.